In the early 1920s, Paris was still recovering from the scars of World War I. The city was beautiful, but it was also vulnerable. And hidden inside this moment of uncertainty was a man who would soon pull off one of the most unbelievable scams in history. His name was Victor Lustig. But people would later call him something else: the man who sold the Eiffel Tower. Not once, but twice. Victor Lustig was born in 1910 in what is now the Czech Republic. From a young age, he showed two unusual talents. He was incredibly charming, and he was a master liar. He spoke several languages, dressed like a wealthy aristocrat, and had the confidence of a king. Wherever he went, people trusted him instantly. But Victor was not a businessman. He was a con artist. And he was about to attempt something that no criminal had ever dared before. In 1925, Lustig was reading a newspaper in a Paris cafe when he saw something interesting. An article mentioned that the Eiffel Tower was expensive to maintain and that the government was struggling with its upkeep. That single sentence sparked an outrageous idea in his mind. What if someone could sell the Eiffel Tower? It sounded impossible, which is exactly why it might work. Lustig began planning carefully. First, he forged official government documents. Then, he rented a luxurious suite at the Hôtel de Crillon, one of the most prestigious hotels in Paris. Next, he invited 6 wealthy scrap metal dealers to a private meeting. The invitation said it came from the French government. When the businessmen arrived, they were greeted by Victor Lustig, dressed perfectly, calm, confident, and professional. He introduced himself as a deputy director of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. Then he revealed the secret. The French government, he said, had decided to secretly dismantle the Eiffel Tower and sell it as scrap metal. The tower was expensive, unpopular with some Parisians, and the government wanted to remove it quietly to avoid public outrage. The 6 businessmen were shocked, but they also saw an incredible opportunity. Lustig took them on a private tour of the Eiffel Tower. He spoke with authority. He explained how much metal the tower contained. He talked about transportation, contracts, and logistics. Everything sounded completely official, and slowly the businessmen began to believe him. Among the 6 men was a scrap dealer named André Poisson. Poisson was eager to prove himself in the business world. He desperately wanted the deal, and Lustig sensed it immediately. So he played his final trick. Lustig invited Poisson to a private conversation. He leaned closer and lowered his voice. Then he confessed something shocking. Government officials, he said, were poorly paid, and sometimes they expected personal incentives to approve big deals. In other words, he wanted a bribe. Poisson understood instantly. He believed he was bribing a government official to win the contract for the Eiffel Tower, so he paid Lustig a huge sum of money, both the official purchase price and the bribe. Within hours, Victor Lustig left Paris with the money and disappeared. Days passed, then weeks. Finally, Poisson realized the truth. He had been tricked. The Eiffel Tower was never for sale, and the man he paid was not a government official. He had been scammed. But Poisson was too embarrassed to report it to the police, so he stayed silent, which gave Lustig an unbelievable opportunity. A few months later, Victor Lustig returned to Paris, and unbelievably, he tried the exact same scam again, selling the Eiffel Tower for the second time. This time, however, one of the businessmen became suspicious and contacted the police. Lustig quickly fled to the United States. For years, he continued his criminal career. He ran countless scams and even became involved in counterfeiting operations. Eventually, in 1935, Victor Lustig was finally arrested. The authorities discovered he had printed millions of dollars in fake money. He was convicted and sent to Alcatraz, the most secure prison in America.
There, the greatest con artist of his time spent the rest of his life behind bars. He died in prison in 1947, but his legend never disappeared, because in the long history of crime, no one had ever done something quite like Victor Lustig, a man who convinced businessmen with nothing but charm and confidence that he had the power to sell one of the most famous landmarks on Earth, the Eiffel Tower, twice. If history teaches us anything, it's this: sometimes the most unbelievable stories are completely true.